All right, guys. So everybody should have their notes open as we talk about the rise of Hitler and the Third Reich as we make our way to World War II. Okay, so who was this guy Adolf Hitler that you've heard about your entire life? What was his background? Who was he? Adolf Hitler was born in Austria in 1899. A lot of people have this misconception that Hitler was German. He was not. He was actually born in Austria. Okay? He moved to Munich in Germany later in his life and would ultimately serve as dictator of Germany. He became chancellor in 1933 and then head of state in 1934, becoming an absolute dictator, and would serve in that role from 1933 to 1945. 12 years too many. He was the leader of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, what we call, and what the British called, the Nazis. Okay? They called themselves National Socialists. So how did Hitler turn a democratic Germany into an autocratic state? Well, before Hitler became involved in politics, he was a soldier fighting for Germany in World War I and became a strong German patriot and fell in love with war. So when Hitler served in World War I, he actually won the Iron Cross, which is sort of like the equivalent of our Congressional Medal of Honor. He had been a runner during World War I in the German trenches, running messages from Central Command to the front in the trenches, and got gassed at one point and went temporarily blind on a couple different occasions. So, he was right there in the midst of the fighting and was temporarily blinded from, we talked about how gas was used in World War I. This is what will ultimately lead him to believe that there was no honor in using gas during warfare. Now, the irony is that he would use it. He had no problem using it against political opponents, including Jews in gas chambers, helpless individuals during World War II, during the final solution, the Holocaust, but claimed that there was nothing honorable about using it on the battlefield, which is why you never hear about it having been used in actual combat during World War II, is because he didn't think that was honorable. Okay? Hitler got really upset after the armistice was signed in 1918 because, like many other German soldiers, there was really no decisive battle that ended World War I. Hitler and many other German soldiers were like, why did we stop fighting? We still had a lot of good German soldiers in the field. Like I said, there was no really decisive battle, so why did Germany surrender? Why did we shut it down? So Hitler would become a strong patriot and fell in love with war. Hitler was a super nationalist, okay? Nationalism, there's nothing wrong with nationalism. We stand up every morning and say the Pledge of Allegiance. We rise for the national anthem at sporting events. That's an expression of nationalism. That's an expression of pride in your country. Fascism, which is what Hitler was and the Nazis were, the fascists, fascism is like nationalism on steroids. Fascism is like what we do, taken to a crazy level. So if we were in Nazi Germany and we stood and saluted the flag, in fascism, if somebody chose not to do that, you grab them by their shirt collar, you pick them up, you slap them across the face and say, salute the flag. Okay? In nationalism, if somebody doesn't seem to be, in fascism, if somebody doesn't seem to be enthusiastic enough about the military parade or saluting the flag, you turn them in. Like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you saluting the flag? So, fascism is nationalism on steroids. Okay? The cause of the nation is to be advanced at any cost, even war. Alright? Your life means nothing. The state is everything. And you should be willing to lay down your life for greater Germany. Okay? That was how Hitler and the Nazis taught you. Was that, they never asked you, do you like this? How do you feel about this? Share your honest feelings. It was conformity. It was you should be willing to lay down your life for greater Germany. Okay? So Hitler believed in a greater Germany, a third Reich, a third empire. Reich means empire that would last 1,000 years. So when World War I ended, Hitler was very upset, like many other Germans, that Germany had lost the war. And they started to ask themselves, why? Why did we lose? What happened? Well, one of the things that it's gotten a lot worse today, people don't like to accept responsibility for their own actions. Nobody likes to have to confront the fact, I didn't get the job done. I failed. So what do? You make excuses. You make excuses. Here's why I didn't do my homework last night. Because, I had, whatever. Sometimes the reasons can be legitimate. I had a ball game. I was tired. We make excuses for things. Well, when the Germans asked themselves, why did we lose the war? They started making excuses. They tried to find themselves a scapegoat. Somebody that they could lay the blame of losing World War I on. And they found that in Jewish people, the Jewish population of Germany, that they claimed had been working behind the scenes to subvert German interest and to keep Germany from fighting the war the way it should have been fought. The Treaty of Versailles that we talked about ending World War I was signed on June 28, 1919, and formally brought World War I to an end. It was negotiated by the leaders of the Allies with little German representation. The treaty, as you guys remember, held severe consequences for Germany. The war guilt clause made them accept the entire blame for the war. It made Germany pay reparations, like the entire cost, damages. It made them pay the entire cost of reparations in World War I. It took German territory away, if you'll remember. It stripped Germany of all of its colonies. Germany wasn't able to have a big military. It was very humiliating. And I told you guys that the Treaty of Versailles can actually be seen as the direct cause of World War II because it was so punitive on Germany. Okay? Many Germans were unhappy with the treaty, including Adolf Hitler. So why were so many Germans upset with the treaty? As I said, Germany had to accept full blame for starting World War I. Germany had to pay reparations or payments for damages to countries devastated by the war. Germany lost land and all of its worldwide colonies. And Germany had to reduce the size of its military and its weaponry. Many people agree that this treaty was a big, big factor, in my opinion, the factor of Hitler gaining power in Germany in World War II beginning. To meet payments for the reparations, Germany just started printing money. This is called inflation. And they engaged in what was called hyperinflation, which caused Germany's economy to literally implode. It was actually cheaper. The German mark became so worthless because of hyperinflation. It was actually cheaper to burn German marks, paper marks, than it was to use them to buy firewood. That's how worthless the German mark became. Okay? You would see little old ladies walking down the street with literally wheelbarrows of German marks to purchase a loaf of bread. That's how worthless their currency became. So Germany was in serious, serious trouble after World War I. And it's for this reason, that desperation, looking for anybody that could help them, that they would be willing to listen to a nut, a right-wing loon like Adolf Hitler. Germany lost land, they lost all their worldwide colonies, they had to pay all this money, their economy's destroyed, they're humiliated. And quite honestly, the treaty was way too hard on them and did set the stage for ultimately World War II. So after World War I mentioned Germany falls into a deep economic depression. Germany had to pay reparations to other countries, but did not have enough money to do so. They didn't have enough money to rebuild themselves from the damage of World War I. Hitler was very angry about this situation, which is why he entered politics. Now, Hitler was very much into the opera. He was very much into Richard Wagner, who composed a lot of very strong symphonies, like really powerful music, strong music. And Hitler would actually practice his speeches in the mirror and use very dramatic, operatic type gestures whenever he would speak. You can actually watch him kind of get into character. Well, he would approach the microphone and would remain silent for what seemed like an eternity. And then he would start speaking. My fellow Germans, my people, and he would work himself up into this sort of yelling frenzy. So he would start very serious, and wait, and then build up into this almost tirade, yelling and screaming and using lots of hand gestures and telling the Germans that the time has come for them to retake their place in the world, that they've been pushed around for too long. He gave the German people hope. He gave the German people someone to believe in after the devastation of their country after World War I. People were willing to listen to him. So he gave many powerful speeches that Germans wanted to believe. He became the leader of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, also known as the Nazi Party, and gathered enough support to lead a coup against Germany's government in the Weimar Republic in 1923. After World War I, Germany sort of became like us for a while. It was called the Weimar Republic after the city of Weimar in Germany. They were a democracy, okay? And it was during that roughly 15-year period when Germany was a republic that people could vote just like we do. People participated in politics. It was a more open period in German history, okay? And so in 1923, in what became known as the Beer Hall Putsch in Munich, Hitler and the Nazi Party tried to take over Germany by force. Okay, they tried to seize the reins of power. Now, the Beer Hall Putsch was put down and Hitler went to jail. But a lot of Germans began to sympathize with Hitler because they were like, well, at least this guy's trying to do something. At least this guy is trying to stand up to all this humiliation and trying to tell us that we're better than what we have right now. At least he's doing something. So a lot of people instinctively sympathized with Hitler because they felt like in this time of oppression, here's a guy who's not afraid to stand up for the German people and try to end this malaise. So after the failed Beer Hall Putsch, when the Nazis tried to take over Germany by force, Hitler gets sent to prison. But don't think of it as a prison like a bad prison. It was like a resort prison, okay? Hitler was so well thought of now by so many German people that the prison he was in was kind of like a hotel, okay? So the Beer Hall Putsch coup, or failed takeover of Germany, caused him to be sent to prison for 9 months. And while he was in prison, he wrote his autobiography called Mein Kampf. Does anybody know what that translates to in English? My struggle. My struggle. Okay? And in his autobiography, Mein Kampf, he detailed his plans of how to solve all of Germany's problems. Now, every couple, once Hitler took power in 1933, every married couple got a copy of Mein Kampf as a gift from their Führer. The word Führer means leader. Okay? So when you hear somebody say, mein Führer, that meant my leader. Okay? Der Führer, the leader. Okay? So every married couple got a copy of Mein Kampf. So what were Hitler's solutions in Mein Kampf? This was guys, besides the Bible, this was the most read book in all of Europe. So when Hitler talked about how to solve Germany's problems, he told the German people that they were the greatest race that the world had ever known. The most highly evolved, most intelligent, greatest race the world has ever known. And that because they were the greatest race the world had ever known, the German people needed Lebensraum, which is German for living space. Lebensraum. Living space for the master race. His destiny it was to take over the world and enslave all inferior races. To make those inferior races work for the master race. Okay? And ultimately eliminate impure races. Here's the thing, is it's all right there. I mean, Hitler tells everybody, prior to World War II, guys, what he's going to do. I mean, it's all right there in Mein Kampf. It's the destiny, he says, of the German people to enslave all other inferior races, use them, and ultimately eliminate them. Okay? So Hitler is talking about ultimately creating a dictatorship here. When Hitler was released from prison, he continued to give fiery speeches that would continue to ignite the German people. And again, the German people were so angry by the Treaty of Versailles that they listened to him. Because again, they felt like, well, at least somebody is out there fighting for us. At least somebody is expressing pride in who we are as a people and is talking about a future for the German people when Germany's condition looked so bleak at the moment. So to a lot of people, he carried them along on a wave of hope. He offered the German people hope. So in 1929, as you guys know by now, the U.S. stock market crashed. This event worsened the German economic depression. Why? Germany's economy was being supported by loans from U.S. banks because Germany didn't have enough money to pay the reparations. Okay? So Germany had been getting loans from American banks so they could pay the damages from World War I, as they had been forced to do by the Treaty of Versailles. When the stock market crashed, U.S. banks wanted Germany to pay their loans back immediately. Obviously, Germany couldn't do this because their economy was in the toilet too and they didn't have any money. So when Germany couldn't do this, German businesses began failing, many Germans lost their jobs, and Germans were looking for solutions to all of their problems. Not just economic problems, but just the malaise and humiliation and the worthlessness that they felt after World War I during the Weimar period. And Hitler, again, gave them hope. He promised to bring Germany out of this economic malaise and restore Germany's pride. And Germany would once again take its place in the world. He talked about repudiating the Treaty of Versailles or nullifying it. We're not going to abide by that treaty. Very nationalistic. Lots of pride. Okay. Is everybody still with me here? Yeah? Good. So basically the Nazis take advantage of Germany's terrible situation. So Germany's democratic governmental system was called the Weimar Republic. Hitler lashed out against the Weimar Republic, and many Germans began to support Hitler. He made many promises to the German people. In terms of economy, Hitler offered solutions for Germany's economic problems. He promises the Germans sort of the Nazi New Deal. Public works projects. Ever heard of the Autobahn before? Autobahn? Okay, well there's no speed limit in Germany. Okay, that was Hitler. He built an interstate system all over Germany called the Autobahn. Okay? And this is what I think is really ironic. You know the Volkswagen, like the VW, okay, like the Beetle? You know how everybody thinks of that as like the hippie love car, like you see people painting flowers? You know who created that? Hitler went to Dr. Porsche, as in like Porsche, and was like, I need a people's car. You know what Volkswagen stands for? The people's car. Volkswagen. The people's car. Volk. Okay? So the irony is that the Volkswagen, the German-created Volkswagen, was Hitler's. He and Dr. Porsche created that for the people. They wanted an affordable car for the people. Das Autobahn. German highways that people could drive the people's car on that would link Germany together. So these public works projects would tie Germany together. Interstates, the Autobahn, would help tie the German people together and create jobs. So he's wanting to kind of do a New Deal, a Nazi New Deal type thing. Use the government to put people to work to get Germany out of this depression. Strength. Hitler promised to make Germany a powerful country again in Europe and the world. We will take our place. We will be among the first, not the last. Blame. I told you that they wanted a scapegoat. Not only to lay the blame of losing World War I on, but to lay the blame of Germany's misery during the economic depression. So Hitler finds the Jews and uses them as a scapegoat for all of Germany's problems by telling people, well, it's the Jewish bankers, it's the Jewish moneylenders, it's the Jews that are dominating certain professions like the arts. They're the reason for this. They're the reason why our economy is so bad right now. They're the reason we lost World War I. We would have never surrendered had it not been for those Jews, and so forth and so on. So Hitler gives the German people a scapegoat, and they start going, yeah, it wasn't us. It was those traitors who live within our borders, the Jews. So he gives the German people a scapegoat, or someone to blame the loss of World War I on. Okay? Protection. He talked about repudiating the Treaty of Versailles altogether. The Treaty of Versailles prevented Germany from having a strong military. Well, Hitler says, that's out the window. We are going to rearm. We are going to build up our military. We're going to produce shells and tanks and planes and all kinds of weapons of war. So he's going to increase Germany's military and weapons production and promise the German people he could protect them. And most importantly, guys, nationalism. This is the big thing. German pride. National pride. Call for an increase in Germany's lands. Lebensraum. You know, again, the cause of the nation. In fascism, guys, the cause of the nation is to be advanced at any cost, even war. Supranationalism. Fascism is supranationalism. Terror. After becoming dictator, Hitler banned all other political parties and sent those who spoke out against him to concentration camps. Okay? Now, early on, the concentration camps were not death camps, guys. Early on, the concentration camps were places of terror. So let's say that Bryson said some bad things about Hitler, and Jaden was part of the secret police that overheard him saying those things. Well, Jaden could turn Bryson into the Gestapo, and Bryson might disappear for a few days, and then he might show back up suddenly with a couple black eyes, a broken arm, and we would say, well, what happened to you? And Bryson would say, well, I was in Dachau, and they beat me up. They broke my arm. What they're trying to do is get you to go back out and tell people, don't say what I did. Look what happened to me. So in the beginning, concentration camps were places of political oppression. They'd beat you up a little bit, they'd work you over, then let you go so you can go tell people not to say the things that I said. Does that make sense? Okay, it's not going to be until 1941 whenever the concentration camps are converted into the extermination or death camps. Okay? So, Hitler used stormtroopers. And yes, if you think that sounds like Star Wars, that's exactly where it comes from. Hitler's thugs, a paramilitary wing of the Nazi Party, was called the Brown Shirts, the SA or the Brown Shirts. And the Brown Shirts would go and beat up people who spoke out against Adolf Hitler. Okay, honestly kind of reminds me of Antifa right now. Okay, in terms of a group that goes out and attacks people who disagree with them. All right, but that is the type of guy we're talking about here. Someone who wants to use force to assault and beat up other people who disagree with them. Okay. So in 1932, the Nazi Party won the majority of the vote in Germany's parliamentary elections. They only won 37% of the vote, but were able to put together a coalition government. In 1933, Hitler is appointed the Chancellor of Germany and began to turn Germany into a fascist state. You may be like, well, what is the difference between fascism and communism? Okay? There are ways that fascism and communism are alike and ways that fascism and communism are different. Okay? Under fascism, you still have private property. You still have a class system. You still have upper, middle, and lower classes. Okay? But the government seeks to control every aspect of your life. They try to control what you think. They try to control what you say. They try to control what you see. They try to control the total individual. Under communism, there is no such thing as private property. The state owns everything. There is no class system. But like fascism, under communism, the government also tries to control what you think, what you see, what you say, every aspect of your life. Fascism and communism are both totalitarian ideologies that seek control over the total individual. The only difference is that fascism, you have a class structure and private property, and communism, you do not. Okay? All right. So, Hitler begins to turn Germany into a fascist state. He begins to pass laws to change Germany's constitution. So, why is this allowed? The Treaty of Versailles says they can't do these things. So, why do the Western European nations just sit back and let Hitler say and do these things? Well, mainly because there was a belief that maybe we had been too hard on Germany. There was also a fear of going to another world war. There was great anti-war sentiment after World War I in Europe, and Hitler knows this. And he knows that France and England are not going to do anything to stop him. So he understands the anti-war sentiment. He is going to take advantage of this. All right? At one point, the German Reichstag, or parliamentary building, is set on fire, and Hitler blamed communists. An emergency decree was put in place that suspended civil liberties all over Germany. Many now think that Hitler was behind the fire, so he could convince the German government to put the emergency decree in place. With that emergency decree, Hitler was able to gain sole control over the German Reichstag, or legislature. So it's like an emergency measure. Oh, I need this power to be able to protect Germany. But in reality, what he's doing is taking away people's rights and civil liberties. Is everybody still with me here? Good. So Hitler Hitler now becomes a dictator once he has those emergency powers. With Hitler dictator of Germany, he now has total control over everything and answers only to himself. A fascist state is a country that has a strong central government controlled by the military and led by a dictator. Again, the cause of the nation is to be advanced at any cost. Hitler bans all other political parties in Germany besides the National Socialist Party. Anyone who spoke out against Hitler or his Nazi party were terrorized by private armed groups called brown shirts. Now, Mussolini in Italy also had a group of thugs like this known as the black shirts. Mussolini, like Hitler, was a fascist and ruled Italy as a dictator. So Hitler and Mussolini were very similar in the way they governed their country and used terror to try to silence anyone who disagreed with them. Okay? I mentioned that political opponents in Germany were sent to concentration camps. If you were a socialist, if you were like a Christian Democrat, anybody who spoke out against Hitler, you would be sent to the concentration camps and tortured and terrorized to get you to mend your ways and to try to tell other people not to do what you've done. The first concentration camp was in Dachau, and it housed political opponents. Opponents weren't just other political parties. Even opponents within the Nazi Party were terrorized and sent to camps. So Hitler begins to actually throw people that he knew into the concentration camps because he believed they were not being loyal enough. The head of the brown shirts, a guy by the name of Ernst Röhm, was actually killed on what was called the Night of the Long Knife because one of Hitler's other associates convinced him that Ernst Röhm was planning a hostile takeover of the government. And Hitler believed him. And so Hitler had this guy killed. So it wasn't just political opponents. It could be people who were not seen to be enthusiastic enough about what the Nazis were doing within the Nazi Party. So Hitler, again, faced no opposition because people were afraid to speak out. People were afraid to say anything out of fear that they would end up in a concentration camp. Hope everybody's still with me here and this is all making sense. He tolerated no opposition. No dissent. Good? Yeah. All right, so with Hitler dictator of Germany and facing no opposition, he begins to expand the German Empire and violate the Treaty of Versailles, which he had promised the German people he would do. First thing that Hitler does is begin to rearm Germany, which was against the Treaty of Versailles. But that didn't stop Hitler. So he begins to rebuild the military and increases production of weapons. Hitler increased the military's budget so much in his first year as Chancellor of Germany that the military wasn't able to spend it all. That's how much money Hitler gave and prioritized to give to the military so Germany could begin rearming, which was against the Treaty of Versailles. He also ordered Germany to stop paying reparations for World War I. And he also began making plans to expand German territory. So, why is England and France not stopping him? He's doing these things that are in violation of the Treaty of Versailles. Why won't England and France stop him? Well, I mentioned there were a lot of people who were afraid that in so doing, if they tried to physically, use force to stop Hitler from doing these things, it would trigger another world war. And many Western Europeans did not want that, so they let him get away with it. And again, there was this feeling that maybe we had been too hard on Hitler. Okay? So, England and France were aware of Hitler's actions, but looked the other way to avoid another world war. So, Hitler began to follow through with his promises. He had promised to expand Germany and find Lebensraum, or living space. The very first thing that Hitler does in 1936 is roll into the Rhineland. Remember when I showed you guys that map after World War I of that part of Germany that was the demilitarized zone because France wanted a buffer between themselves and Germany? And I told you that even though it would technically be part of Germany still, it would be administered by the League of Nations, and Germany wasn't allowed to have any troops or tanks or soldiers or anything like that in there. Do you remember that? Okay. In 1936, the first thing that Hitler does is reoccupy the Rhineland. So the military goes rolling into the Rhineland, and England and France don't do anything to stop Hitler. The next thing that Hitler does in March of 1938 is roll into Austria, his homeland. Das Anschluss is a German term which refers to the reunification of Germany and Austria. Now, quite honestly, folks, there is very little real difference between Austrians and Germans. Culturally, they are very similar. So Hitler wants to unify Germany and Austria into a greater Germany. Okay? And he does this. March of 38, Hitler goes rolling into Austria. Why do England and France do nothing to stop him? What are they worried about? They're worried about provoking another world war, so they let him do it. They're like, oh, well, that's where he's from anyway, and those people are all alike over there, so go ahead and let him have it. Let him have it. So it's like Hitler is playing craps in Vegas, guys. He's gambling. He's gambling that England and France aren't going to do anything to stop him. He's gambled twice now with the Rhineland and Austria and hit. He's been correct. The next thing he is going to do is point to a little area of Czechoslovakia that's right beside Germany called the Sudetenland. The Sudetenland was part of Czechoslovakia, and it was home to a lot of ethnic Germans. And Hitler said, I want that territory. And Czechoslovakia said, drop dead, buddy, that's part of our country. You can't have that. And Hitler says, if you won't give me that land, you take it by force, and I'll go to war with you. I will invade Czechoslovakia and take it by force. The British Prime Minister, to try to calm everybody down, named Neville Chamberlain, goes to Hitler and says, wait. There's no need for any war. We can be reasonable about this. So in a place called Munich, Germany, in September of 1938, Adolf Hitler meets with the British Prime Minister. And the British Prime Minister says to Hitler, if you agree not to take any more territory, if you'll give us your solemn promise and sign this piece of paper, giving us your word that your days of taking territory are over, we will give you the Sudetenland. Okay? Folks, this is called appeasement. Very important. Appeasement means you give in to the demands of a dictator hoping to secure peace. Okay? Well, appeasement is the equivalent of being chased by a cannibal and cutting off one of your fingers and throwing it to the cannibal, hoping he'll go away. Will the cannibal go away? No. What will they want? They'll want more. That's exactly right. So what Neville Chamberlain has kind of done here is thrown the cannibal a finger, who has now gotten a taste of what he could have the rest of if he really wanted it. So, in Munich, appeasement, they give Hitler the Sudetenland. He gets what he wants. And this proves to Hitler that the English and the French are a bunch of cowards. Right? One guy, Neville Chamberlain, comes home and is like, oh, we've secured peace. I have this piece of paper saying Hitler won't take any more land. One guy knew what was going on in England named Winston Churchill. And Winston Churchill said, England has been given a peace between war and shame. She has chosen shame and will get war. So he knew what was coming. He knew what was coming. And that England had screwed up by not standing up to Hitler and being more forceful. So, in March of 1939, Hitler became more aggressive and annexed the rest of Czechoslovakia and took it over, breaking his promise. And Neville Chamberlain was like, well, he lied to me. He told me he wasn't going to take any more territory. He lied to me. Hitler was like, yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So now Hitler has the rest of Czechoslovakia in his hip pocket. Okay? So Hitler saw that Great Britain and France were not going to stop him. So after invading the rest of Czechoslovakia, finally, England and France say, okay, all right, he lied. If Hitler takes any more territory, we will declare war on Germany. Well, it took you long enough. It took you long enough to make that statement. So, still gambling that England and France would not do anything to stop him. On September the 1st, 1939, Hitler and the Nazis invaded Poland. Right? Invaded Poland. Hitler and the Nazis invaded Poland from the east, or from the west, and the Soviet Union invaded Poland from the east. So it's like, with that much firepower on them, the poor Polish collapsed in just a couple weeks. September the 1st, 1939 is what started World War II. That's when World War II began. Because after the Nazis invaded Poland and broke their promise, that's when England and France declared war on Germany. Okay? So, once Hitler invaded Poland, the German army quickly took over most of Europe using a lightning war called a blitzkrieg. Somebody tell me in football what a blitz is.
Go after the quarterback.
Very good. Who said that? Very good. Outstanding. Very good. So, in blitz, whenever a defense calls whenever a defense calls blitz, blitz is a German word which means lightning. Krieg is a German word which means war. Blitzkrieg means lightning war. When you blitz the quarterback, you're trying to get him to do something. You're trying to sack him, or you're trying to make him panic and maybe throw an interception or just throw the ball away, right? That's what Hitler's war was, the lightning war. Hitler would strike you fast and he would strike you hard. He's coming after you. He's sending everything. Tanks, planes, jeeps, motorcycles, troops. He's hitting you with everything he's got at one time, so you will collapse quickly. Sack that quarterback. Okay? Very effective style of warfare. Blitzkrieg. By the end of 1940, most of Europe was now under Hitler's control. Hitler wanted not only to conquer all of Europe, but wanted to rid Europe, as he had talked about in Mein Kampf, of all impure races. He blamed the Jews for Germany's problems and also targeted other groups of people he considered inferior for his new Germany. Okay? Slavs, Jews, people that were mentally disabled, physically disabled, Jehovah's Witnesses, gypsies. Hitler really hated gypsies, folks. He even thought they were lower than Jews. A lot of people don't know that. Hitler thought that gypsies were the lowest of the low in the racial hierarchy. He felt like they were on the bottom. So it wasn't just Jews. I think we all have this idea that it's just Jews he went after. He went after any race which he considered to be inferior, which was basically everybody other than the German people, okay, and people of German descent. So everybody else was ultimately going to have to just be liquidated. He would enslave them and exploit them for their labor, but then at some point they would have to be liquidated. So people with people that are mentally challenged, okay, they would get sent to homes. Applerbeck was children's farm. And the German people, the German government would say, if you have a child with mental issues, send them to Applerbeck. They'll be cared for. We'll take care of it. Well, what they would do is they would give the children lethal injections and kill them. And then mom and dad would show back up and say, well, where's my son? Well, he died of measles. But what they were really doing behind the scenes was giving them lethal injections and killing them, because they were not welcome in Hitler's state of perfect people, or what he considered to be perfect people. So anybody who did not fit his vision of perfection was to be removed and liquidated. Okay? All right, so let's talk here a little bit about the road to ultimately the Holocaust. The Nazis were very openly anti-Semitic. What does anti-Semitic mean? Anti-Jewish. Semitic means Jewish. So if you're anti-Semitic, that means you're anti-Jewish. Okay? So this all began when Hitler and the Nazis came to power in Germany. I mentioned that the Nazis gave the German people a scapegoat for all their problems. For losing World War I, for all of Germany's economic problems. He was able to say, hey, it wasn't your fault, it was the fault of the Jewish people. Okay? So at first, Jewish businesses are boycotted. And then laws were passed discriminating against Jews, like the Nuremberg laws. So the Nazis organized a boycott, which means that you don't purchase goods of any Jewish business. So the Nazis told Germans, don't buy anything from Jewish-owned businesses. Boycott them. Well, the Nuremberg laws of 1935 were blatantly discriminatory. You would have to wear a yellow Star of David prominently on your clothing to let people know that you were a Jew. And these yellow Stars of David had to be somewhere prominent so they could be seen. If you didn't have yours on, you could get sent to the concentration camp. Okay? Very serious not to wear it. The Nuremberg laws stripped all German Jews of their citizenship rights. They had no citizenship rights. The Nuremberg laws forbade marriage between Jews and Germans. The Nuremberg laws made, if you were on a sidewalk with a German and you were a Jew, you would have to step off the street to get out of their way. Okay? So the Nuremberg laws of 1935 stripped all Jews of their citizenship rights and forced Jews to have to wear a yellow Star of David so everybody could see that they were Jewish. Hitler's hatred of certain races, ethnic groups, and peoples resulted in the genocide of 11 million men, women, and children ultimately. The Holocaust was a systematic, state-sponsored persecution and ultimately murder of innocent people. Millions got sent to the concentration camps, and there was a question. This was called the final solution to the Jewish question. Hitler had to ask, what do we do with these people? Yes, we want to exploit them. Yes, we want to use them for their labor to enrich Germany. But what ultimately is their fate going to be? Well, this was called the final solution to the Jewish question, extermination. Beginning in 1941, Germany's concentration camps began converting over into death camps, extermination camps, like Auschwitz, like Belsen, like Treblinka. Okay? They would be converted over to process human beings and systematically exterminate human beings. In Auschwitz alone, over 1 million Jewish people were put to death, were gassed, and then cremated, burned, their bodies burned. Yes, Patty? Yes. Were killed by the Nazis in these extermination camps. The mass extermination, folks, 6 million Jews and 5 million other people, 6 million Jews, is known as the Holocaust. Okay? 5 million other so-called undesirables are put to death by Adolf Hitler. Hitler would remain aggressive, attacking European countries not yet under his control, like France. Now, we're going to get to World War II, but today, again, I'm just talking with you a little bit about Nazi ideology and fascism. Finally, in 1945, the U.S. and Soviet Union armies would close in on Hitler. In January of 1945, Hitler retreated to his underground bunker in Berlin, Germany. When he finally realized that defeat was imminent, he would commit suicide on April the 30th, 1945. We'll be talking more about this. Hitler and his Nazi party's reign of terror was finally over. After World War II ended, all symbols associated with Hitler and the Nazi party would be outlawed in an effort to purge their influence from German life. We'll be talking more about the suicide and the end of World War II when we actually talk about World War II starting tomorrow, or maybe it's Monday when we get back. We're watching the video tomorrow. Okay. Y'all follow me pretty well? Making sense? One of the questions they've given on the state test in the past is they have shown all these different yellow stars of David. And the question has been, what act forced Germany to wear these and strip Jews in Germany of their citizenship rights? That was the Nuremberg laws after the German city of Nuremberg. Okay? That's one of the questions they've often given in the past. All right? Everybody with me? Okay. All right. Very good. So that concludes. I'll scoot right through here. Pardon me, folks. That concludes our lecture on the rise of Hitler and fascism in Germany.